When talking about surviving a zombie apocalypse, islands are by far one of the most recommended places for survival. And in my last video, are hospitals good in a zombie apocalypse? It was by far the most suggested place I should talk about next, because at first glance I can see why it's recommended so much. The water between your island and the mainland act as a barricade from zombies and other potential threats. Due to the low population, if there even is a population, that means fewer zombies you'll have to deal with. And the likelihood of running into dangerous encounters seems to be far less likely. So this got me thinking, are islands good in a zombie apocalypse? Or are they a big mistake? Let's do a deep dive analysis on today's episode of Zombie Survival Labs. Islands. They come in many different shapes, sizes, and can be found in a variety of different climates. They also are commonly suggested in top 10 places to survive a zombie apocalypse, like in videos made by Real Life Lore, The Richest, or American Eye. But with islands varying in size, climate, and the fact that there's over 2,000 islands on Earth, some islands might be great for survival, while others might be a horrible choice. So if there's over 2,000 islands, what islands would be the best to retreat to during a zombie apocalypse? Firstly, we want the climate to be ideal. Too hot and it'll make you miserable and limit what you can farm, but if it's too cold, you'll die. So an ideal climate would be in the temperate area or between the tropical and temperate climates. This allows your island to have weather conditions that won't be too harsh for your survival and the best conditions for agricultural purposes. You know, because food is important, just like water and shelter. But there's actually an even better trick to knowing if an island is good or not for survival. All you gotta do to know whether an island is good or not for survival is just look at it and see if people are currently living there. Now you might think that finding a remote island where nobody is living is a better choice. No people equals no hostile people, which also means no zombies. But if there's no people currently living on that island, it's probably for good reason. It either means it's too small, doesn't have the resources needed for long-term sustainability, would rely heavily on imported goods to live there, or is in a climate that's too hot or cold to create sustainable resources efficiently. If people are already living on the island, this will tell you that it already has a potential for long-term survival. Plus, it'll come with the added benefit of already having shelter. Building a shelter in the middle of a zombie apocalypse would be time-consuming, a lot of resources, and not really the appropriate time to confront such a task. Building a shelter is something that you should be doing before the outbreak, not during. And if the island is home for some people, this means that it has the adequate space and non-renewable resources to support and aid in long-term survival, like building equipment, medicine, fuel, libraries, and more. Just these two factors of it having an ideal climate and already being occupied by people already eliminate half of the amount of islands in the world. Unfortunately, that pool is still too large and varying to form a conclusive answer on if islands are good in a zombie apocalypse. So instead, for this episode, we're going to be talking about Middle Bass Island. One, because I've been there, and two, because in future episodes we can talk about is Jamaica good in a zombie apocalypse. So go ahead and leave me some ideas down in the comments section down below while I go over the pros on Middle Bass Island. What most people fear about in a zombie apocalypse are the zombies, and that's understandable. But luckily, on Middle Bass Island, located in Lake Erie, Ohio, the population is roughly around 100 people. Chances are that you won't run into anyone besides who is currently on the island. So for our first pro, which is a big one, is a zombie static count. Having to deal with a low number of zombies is a big benefit. Not only does this mean less danger, but it also means that people won't be on edge nearly as much. This also goes hand in hand with low population. And when you have a population of nearly 100 people, which is predominantly senior citizens, on an island that's larger than 3 million square meters, everybody has more than enough space. In the past, I've commonly said that you can have too much space. Like in my last video where I covered hospitals, which you should go watch, by the way, since YouTube suppressed the video because I said the C word that shall not be named. But the difference here is that this is an island and not a building. While you should always secure the entirety and the perimeter of a building that you'll be operating from, you don't need to secure the entirety of an island. You really only need to secure a building on that island. But if you wanted to, 10 people could effectively do the job and give a heads up if boats are on the route to your island, making this island incredibly easy to secure. None of that really matters though if you don't have the fundamentals of survival: food, water, and shelter. To reach a level of long-term survival, these are the three things you have to meet. But Middle Bass Island has you covered. You have markets and farms. And not only will you have food, but Middle Bass Island also has wineries which make their own wines. And well pumps are also very common, so you have an easy access to water, with a wide variety of structures to choose from. A cozy townhouse, a resort, or the winery, which for some reason looks like it's built to look like a fortress. They're pretty serious about their wine. Now you're probably thinking that this place is a big tourist attraction, but truthfully, it's not. So we have the fundamentals for survival, but what else do we have? On Middle Bass Island, you have a plethora of supplies to choose from. You have hotels, marinas, airstrips, a general goods store, restaurants, Lake Erie utilities, and more. With plenty of resources, even if you run out or need something you don't have, half a mile away is South Bass Island, and about 15 miles away is the nearest major city on mainland. So not only are you secluded, but you are also relatively close enough to everything that scavenging is still possible, if you even need to scavenge for things off of the island. As far as pros go though, that's about pretty much everything I can think of. I'm going to get into the cons here in a second, but before I do, leave a comment down below if you think I missed something, and also like this video if you're enjoying it so far. Now let's talk about the cons. Truthfully, there's really only one. It snows. And that's really not even that much of a con. I honestly struggled to find cons for Middle Bass Island, and I'm still struggling. It's not so far up north that you can't plant crops. The island isn't too small that you can't create long-term plans. It's only 15 miles off the coast, which means it's not too secluded, and it's not really a tourist location. So, yeah, really the only con is that it snows a couple months out of the year. If I had to rate Middle Bass Island on a scale of 1 to 10, 1 being a completely horrible idea and 10 being indefinite long-term survival, then Middle Bass Island is a solid 10. We finally did it, boys. We got a 10 on this list. And now that we have a 10, it's time to celebrate, time to get wasted, and time to make an OnlyFans account.